Hope you're doing well in the lockdown version 2 with the remote learning. And that the easy class that we had on Monday was just a nice reintroduction back into health and studying health as a subject. So, throughout years 7 and 8, obviously we had one health and one PE class per week, and then it changed in year 9 where there was the 3 lessons spread across 2 weeks. So you weren't really experiencing health in a huge amount, and now health being a semester based elective subject. So that means that you guys are only being exposed to it for 6 months of the year. Now, obviously, things are adapting and things are changing. So, this is the first time that the first term of this semester based subject is being taught remotely, which also means that I'm trying to adapt the resources as we go to be something that you can access online. It's easy, it's not hugely time consuming or brain consuming, especially when we get to that new information that's to come. And so, I'm trying to make this as accessible and easy to use for you guys as I possibly can. I'm going to be asking for feedback towards the end of this week about how did this week go? What do you want more? What do you want less of? And I'm hoping that today's lesson gives you a little bit of a flavour of what I'd like to do moving forward, where we greet via Zoom, check that everyone's going okay. You watch this video, I guide you through, you complete the work and you upload it. And again, if it's not uploaded until later tonight, that doesn't matter. I'm not going to check it until later tonight. I'll be available via email for the remainder of the lesson. So if you've got any questions, then just ask. I'm going to ask you now to have a look into resources, and under term 1 or 3, we're in term 3 obviously, week 1. Last lesson, we were doing the Dimensions of Health PowerPoint and we worked on that glossary of terms. There's another 3 documents. Today, you're going to go through this one here, the Dimensions Matchup Worksheet, and also Dimensions Case Studies, but not that final document just yet. And you might need to re-access the PowerPoint and the glossary with your continuation of that work. So if we go back to this PowerPoint and have a little bit of a look at it, remember that we spent a little bit of time talking about overall health and well-being last lesson, and then we went into the physical, the social, the emotional, just in a very basic sense. Now, as it pertains to the physical health, and that as one of the 5 dimensions, this over here, as you can see, is the functioning of the body and its systems at a full physical capacity to perform all your daily tasks and activities. That means that you don't have any physical illness or any of the things that might be stopping, being a barrier from you being able to carry out your physical day-to-day life. That means that you have good physical health. So it's all those aspects there. Now, I'm hoping in the lesson, in the notes that you took last lesson, you've got something like that written down. When it relates to the social health and well-being as the second of those 5 health and well-being dimensions, this is about the ability to form meaningful and satisfying relationships with others and manage or adapt to different social situations. So if somebody has a lack of a social group, meaning that they don't want to interact with others, they don't feel comfortable with it, they're not sure how to act with others, that could mean that that's negative social health and well-being for that person. The next one here is the emotional. So this is not about not feeling sad. It's about expressing the right emotion in the right way at the right time and being able to manage them. So when something happens that is sad, it's about feeling sadness but being able to move through that. And then when something happens that is a really happy thing, it's showing that right emotion and in the right quantities and the right amounts at the right time. 4th one is the mental health and well-being. And it's a different breakdown to the emotional, even though quite often the words mental and emotional get interchanged with each other. This one is about a person's mind or brain being able to think and process information clearly and concisely. So if somebody has high levels of stress and anxiety, their thought patterns aren't able to process through situations, and that would mean they have negative mental well-being at that time. So it's about decision making and how you feel about yourself and others. And finally, that spiritual health and well-being. This is about the individual's ideas, beliefs, values, ethics. So how do you fit into your world? What is your meaning within life? Is it around family and respect and making sure that everybody experiences peace and harmony, all interrelating with each other. Quite a difficult one to define, but one that has to be mentioned in those 5 health and well-being dimensions. What I would like you to do now is to copy and paste this or right click onto this URL here and go into the Kahoot. Now, this Kahoot is not obviously going to be done as a group, but what I would like you to do is just give yourself a self audit. So, 20 questions, and just clicking on the question will help you bring up the answer. And I know that you're not going to see the ticks and crosses right from the start. So what you're going to need to be able to do here is have a guess of the answer before you click on it. So the first question says, being able to perform daily tasks is part of, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, is that physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social? Well, I know that from what I was just talking about before, that's the physical health and well-being. So I click on that one, and I have a look at the answers, and physical health and well-being was the correct answer. Then I move on to the next one. I'd like you guys to do your own self-audit for that work there. Thank you. Once you've completed that self-audit and you're continuing on with this, the next slide talks about some scenarios. Now, I'm going to talk you through those 2 scenarios rather than you look at this PowerPoint document here. So let's have a look at the documents that you're going to need. This is the first one, the Health and Wellbeing Dimensions Mix and Match-Up Worksheet. This one is the most simple of all. It might have a lot of things, but you only need to write down the dimension of health and well-being that's applicable. And if there are more than one, then you would explain why there's more than one, just with one simple sentence. So the first one, Sam is 170 centimeters tall. He has a BMI, you might need to Google that one, a body mass index, which is showing the distribution of weight, fat, and muscle around his body, of 34 plus, putting him at risk of high blood cholesterol levels, high blood pressure, and type 2 diabetes. This is all about the functioning of his physical well-being, as you can tell from your reading. So there's only one. You would write down physical health and well-being as the dimension, and because there's only one, I don't feel a need for you to explain it. But as you move on to the next 2 or 3 of them and the rest of the page, you might find that multiple dimensions of health and well-being come up in that mini scenario, and if that's the case, then a sentence to explain why it's multiple will be required. After you've completed that task, I'd like you to go ahead and upload that to term 3, week 1. The next one that I'm going to get you to look at is called the Health Dimensions Case Studies. And this task here gives you 2 case studies. Now, I know that there's another set of case studies and you've just seen a couple of them. These are a bit more extensive. And after you read through each of those 2 boxes, you're going to need to actually list not just which dimension it is, but where are the items that you see in here that actually help break down into these dimensions. So, Jeremy is 16 years old. He lives with his mother and is an only child. So in terms of social, he lives with his mother and he is an only child. That's what I would like you to do as you go through this. So anything you find for physical, social, and mental in these case studies, I'd like you to list which one it is and where you see it. That's going to bring us to the end of today's lesson. After you've completed those tasks, so listening to me, the Kahoot, and then those 2 Microsoft Word documents, I'd like you to upload both of those Microsoft Word documents and also just go back and make sure that any of the new words that are mentioned or words that you know are going to be key to this subject, add them to the glossary that you started working on the other day. I'm going to come back tomorrow with another video that finishes off this reintroduction to the health and well-being and the dimensions within health and well-being, and next week we start something brand new. It's only a couple of weeks away before your first outcome task will end up happening, and all of this health and well-being 5 dimensions that we've been talking about so far, they are critical in your analysis and breakdown of that first outcome task. So if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email and ask me as we're going along, rather than leaving it all to the last minute and then sending me that email just before the outcome task. Good luck with today's lesson. Let me know if you need any help.